Welcome to Life is But a Stream, the podcast for tech leaders who need real-time insights. I'm Joseph Morais, technical champion and data streaming evangelist at Confluent. My goal, helping leaders like you harness data streaming to drive instant analytics, enhance customer experiences, and lead innovation. Today I'm talking to Elena Cuevas. She's the Cloud Partner Solutions Engineering Senior Manager at Confluent and a fellow data streaming enthusiast. We'll talk about her role managing relationships with the three big cloud providers, winning data streaming tools and tactics, future-proofing your data, and more. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Your data shouldn't be a problem to manage. It should be your superpower. The Confluent data streaming platform transforms organizations with trustworthy, real-time data that seamlessly spans your entire environment and powers innovation across every use case. Create smarter, deploy faster, and maximize efficiency with the true data streaming platform from the pioneers in data streaming. Learn more at confluent.io.
Joining me now is Elena Cuevas, Cloud Partner Solutions Senior Manager. I think it's important to point that out. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So this is the part, Taylor doesn't realize this, but this is the part where I completely go off script for a moment. So just to set up the audience, when I got to Confluent, I was the first ever partner solutions engineer hired to manage a CSP relationship. And I got there and it was my first time ever doing anything like this. Before that, I would have been one of our customers. So a few months into my tenure, I love him to death, but I realized I was already better at being a PSE than Josh. And he told me that, so I don't feel bad saying that to the public. But then I saw and I interviewed you, and I was like, oh my, she's been at Google for 5 years. She has done this role, and I was very intimidated. And I never told you this. And I was greatly concerned that immediately I was going to be exposed as a fraud in what I was doing. So then I interviewed you, and of course, I wanted you to come work at Confluent. And then when I got to know you and I realized you're one of the most intelligent, passionate, interesting people I've ever worked with. And I think we have one of the more interesting partnerships professionally that I've ever had, because we were both peers. And then there was this inflection point where it was time for somebody to manage the team. And you and I were sitting down at a bar in New York City and we talked about it. And with no arguments, we both decided that we were going to go in different paths. And I think we both made the right choice. You are an incredible leader, and I'm doing this thing, which I'm really happy about.
Thank you. And thank you for the nice words. I mean, I didn't have to wear blush today, I guess. It's been, I mean, just to go off script for a second, yes, it's been absolutely wonderful to work with you for 4 years now that we've known each other.
Crazy.
Time flies.
Yeah, it really does. All right, so let's get back on script.
Yes.
So, we know your title, and we know a little bit about you, but tell me, what is the scope of your responsibilities at Confluent?
Yeah, so I lead a team of solutions engineers like you were and like I was, and also a team of developers now at Confluent that focus on the technical strategy with our three cloud providers. So that goes all the way from building new solutions to building new products to just doing some go-to-market and some enablement. It covers a bunch of different things.
That's awesome. That was another reason, besides you being interesting and my friend, I wanted you to be on the prototype episode, because your role spans so many different parts of what we do, because these cloud partners are our biggest strategic partners. I mean, we can't ignore them. And that requires us to kind of, have tentacles all over the place in order to be effective.
That's good.
So, for people that don't know Confluent, what do we do here in your own words?
Let's see. So we're not Confluent, first off.
We're not a wiki.
Everything I have to say at parties to begin. So Confluent's the ultimate platform for data streaming that allows you to get rid of all that stale data that no one likes, while almost at the same time eliminating just infrastructure operations, which are also nothing that anyone loves. And it's based on Apache Kafka, but it's so much more than that nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially after we acquired Imrock, then we became the Kafka and Flink company. And I really believe that our whole is greater than the sum of our parts. So I think that's a great way of putting it. So the next question is, and this is from the perspective of you and your team, who are your customers?
My customers are Confluent customers, but they're also the cloud partners. And I guess that's a complicated answer, but that's why I have a complicated role, I guess.
So, and then for, just for the audience, Confluent customers are everyone. They're a thing I used to say, and I've modified my messaging a little bit now, but not every use case is a data streaming use case, but every company entity has a data streaming use case, whether they know it or not. So it's just a matter of them learning about it. And that's why we're here today. So
yeah,
Elena,
and we have,
yeah.
I was going to say, and we have customers all over the world, like from your Walmarts, Instacarts, to your bank, like Citi or just L'Oreal. Like it really, really expands a wide variety of customers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know, when the company first started, it was mostly like financial services, and that's not unsurprising with any kind of nascent technology. Financial services tend to get in early. They have really well-funded IT departments. They like to mix it up. But man, I can't think of an industry I haven't talked to a customer in my 4 years here. It's kind of weird. So in a minute, what is your data streaming strategy for working with new partners who are unfamiliar with Confluent? And I realize that's probably not like AWS or Microsoft as a whole, probably more so like maybe new service teams or things like that. But what is your strategy for kind of bringing them in and getting them on board with Confluent?
Honestly, I just like being open, honest, and transparent. I believe a lot of partnering with someone in like the bigger sense of the world is kind of letting them into your world as much as you are trying to step into theirs, right? And building a symbiotic relationship that everyone can benefit from, not only in the partnership, but also thinking about like that broader customer world, right? Like, just how can we do the better things together is really what we're trying to solve for here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's not like here's the million products and services we have. It's more so here are obvious strengths. Not necessarily here are your weaknesses, but here's where we think we can do better, and let's do that together. Yeah.
And really that quote that you said earlier, right? Like the sum is greater than the union of the parts here. It's like it's not just two people or like two companies like doing their own thing. It's like how can we do more when we are a joint unit?
Fantastic. Well, so we're going to jump into our next segment, which we're calling data streaming in a world of clouds. I did come up with that, so I'm very proud of myself. So now that we know Elena better and what you do, for our next segment, let's dig into those partnerships you manage, the big three cloud partners, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. What makes it fascinating is how these are both our biggest partners, but also some of our biggest competitors. So starting off, what has been the biggest challenge or success you faced with partnering with other providers of data streaming?
It's definitely, I would say challenges and successes kind of come one of the same, like all around. They obviously, all the cloud providers sell some flavor of a competing product, which definitely makes for some interesting situations and conversations. And we obviously like our own product, but it's all about doing what's the best for the customer. And luckily, I say this just wholeheartedly, all of our cloud providers believe the same thing and share the same vision and are there for the good of the customer. I remember this was like when I had barely started at the company, maybe I was a year in. One of very big customer, social media customer actually, was evaluating us with and they already were using another cloud provider product. They were using them in OSS Kafka. So they were evaluating if they had to move that OSS Kafka workload to just the cloud provider again, kind of unifying their whole infrastructure, or they wanted to move it to us just because the feature parity was a little bit more similar. there was initial fear, not going to lie. There was initial fear from the account team at the cloud provider, from the account team at Confluent. So there was some hesitation around collaborating and around speaking to each other. I kind of, like I was saying before, I just went in with like total transparency and like really trying to work on what was going to be better for the customer, talking to both account teams, finally bringing them into a room together, but also to the product teams at that cloud provider. And so much so that it ended up being that the product manager for that other competing product at the cloud provider came to the customer call with us to actually sell Confluent to the customer.
Like, that's basically unheard of.
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
And that was one of those cases where it's like sometimes we talk about competing and about one or the other, but we do better things when it's an and, not an or.
You know, this is the second time you touched on transparency. And I think that's like a really important thing to call out, because this is true both in the customer relationship, the partner relationship, and honestly, just relationships in general. It's very hard to build trust, but it is so easy to lose it. Like, you know, what can be built in years can be lost in seconds just by being dishonest or giving an answer that you don't know. And I think people respect you when you say, I don't know, or this is better than that, being honest about it. But, you know, and here are the reasons why I think you should choose us. But if you choose them, we get it, you know. Okay. So kind of building off of that, can you walk us through, I think you've touched on most of this, so this might be a little duplicative, but can you walk us through the steps that you took to solve that challenge?
Really, it was having a lot of conversations. It really starts before the problem, right? Like building partnerships starts way before the problems arise.
That's a good point, yeah.
Like again, it's about showing up every day, building that trust with your customers, with your partners, so that when inevitably the problems arise, there's no hesitation, there's no doubt.
That's a good point.
Of the intent that you come to during the call, like the intent that you come to during a partner call, during a customer call, just intent in general. So yeah, like I would like to say that, or I would like to think that now when I'm in a room with my partners, they know that I always come into the room with the best of intentions, even when our goals don't match or when our next steps will match. We're only there for the same thing.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like, make sure everything is running smoothly while things are good. So when there is a bump in the road, everyone knows how good things usually are, and they can treat this as a bump in the road as opposed to a deviation from the partnership or something along those lines. Never thought about that. See, I'm glad I asked that follow-up now. I was like, should I not? So I know you didn't, specify which of the partners that was, and you don't have to, but what does that partnership look like now after that little challenge?
Yes, we're gonna kick them out as a partner. No, so this was a couple of years ago, and honestly, this was probably our weakest partner back then, and now they're definitely better than ever. We've heavily increased our wins, our logos with that CSP. The amount of integrations that we have is actually better than any of the other CSPs, I believe. The data throughput that they receive from us is incredible. So they're really, really happy, and we are really, really happy with the partnership.
A true partnership, a bi-directional partnership.
Yes, and that's what partnerships are, right? Yeah. Otherwise, like
it doesn't always work out that way. You'd like, idealistically, you'd like them to always be bi-directional. Sometimes they are very one-sided, but I'm glad that, that's been my experience too, that all of our CSP, and I think most of our partnerships in general have been very bi-directional. I love that. So our next segment is the playbook, where you dish out your winning strategies. Now, these could be, from the perspective of a leader in partnership, but this also could be the perspective of just being a, industry-wide data streaming enthusiast yourself, Elena. What are the top 3 tools you rely on for data streaming or not?
It's definitely Kafka, Flink, and this is going to show up my colors as a true Google fangirl. BigQuery would be the third one.
Wow, I was not expecting that. I'm not
Yeah, you
surprised.
were.
I just wasn't expecting that. Okay, that's great. And this comes back to like a story that we talk about a lot now, like shifting left. The idea of sourcing your data, which data streaming is really good at, and then pre-processing and doing a lot of that high-level deduplication, filtering, merging, and things in Flink. So you called that out, and then doing your really hardcore and historical analytics in something like BigQuery, right? But not having to necessarily do the maintenance and custodial tasks over in BigQuery because, I don't know, we think there's a better way of doing it. But I think that was a pretty good stack as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Yes. Can you share a specific tactic that has significantly improved a customer or partner's data operations?
So it's funny that you mentioned shift left because I almost seems like I pin you to cue me up, but that's an actual strategy I was going to mention.
We did not
We've
coordinate this,
been
folks. It's just sometimes magic
no, we
happens.
did not.
Yes.
This is not in the script. So yeah, we've been working with a lot of customers recently on what we're calling these like shift left strategy. It's really been allowing customers for that consistency and efficiency that they've been craving. I believe we've been like through a world in data processing, right? Like at first there was such a huge amount of data that we didn't know what to do with, so we kind of funneled it somewhere and made the transformations whenever and wherever we could. And now we kind of are at the step, or a lot of companies are at the step where they're like, okay, let me like take a step back and see how I can do that better because that's costing me a lot of money and a lot of maintenance too. Like if you've ever been on the other side of the aisle, which I've been, it is very, very painful to maintain 2,000 data pipelines like a customer of us had. Yeah, so really when you talk to them about shift left, and I mean, it definitely takes a little bit of TLC, right? Because it's very hard to take all that hard work over like the last 10 years and like move it into somewhere else.
Right. The benefits got to be
But
great enough to forego or
exactly,
endure that effort. So you have to really kind of sell
exactly.
the benefits on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, you and I say that with the empathy of someone that has had to do it in the past, right?
That's
And
true. Sometimes you don't want to change it because you don't want to break it. And I get that.
yeah,
That's a very powerful
exactly.
motivator. And I think the other thing that's really great in that, not only, are you operationally making it easier, you expose what we call here a Confluent data products, right? Like that
Right.
merged, filtered, cleaned up data. You expose it at an operational level. So you don't, a lot of times what people are doing now is they'll send all that to their warehouse or their data lake, and then they'll reverse ETL it back to use operationally. And that seems silly. If it came through this pipe already, why not get it there instead of sending it back? So, that to me, that's really another really impressive igniter for creativity, like inside of different business units. Hey, I suddenly have this really cool piece of data. I never would have had access to it because they wouldn't give me access to BigQuery. So now I can use this and I can do something really cool with it. And I think
Right.
that really fills in really nicely with this next question, which I think is particularly interesting, in your role. So how do customers evaluate and select new tools for their data stack? And this is not just Confluent products from your world. It's Confluent products plus CSP products. So how do you think, customers even know where to begin when, we have probably like a dozen services, when you kind of break them down and the things that we do, and the CSPs have hundreds of services.
Right. So that presents a very interesting challenge, and that is that customers are perhaps the most informed and also the most overwhelmed that they have ever been, right? Because, like, to your point, there's like such a catalog of tools and solutions to choose from. So there's such a catalog of partners to choose from. But most of them throughout their years have built like trust within a specific trusted advisor, whether it's at the cloud provider or it's a specific SI, whether it's a board of directors that like really has their execution at heart. And usually through those, they will get introduced to again either a cloud provider or to a product like ours. And really, what I like to do from there is I like to like the product speak for themselves. We do have very strong teams that will like come in and try to understand what the goals of the customer are, what their definition of success is. Like you'd be surprised. We've had customers say that real time equated to 15 minutes. And it was like, okay, we can
That's real
definitely
time
do that.
enough for them. Yeah.
That was real time enough for them. And listen, it is a very important definition because maybe some tools are like overshooting with if 15 minutes is like your definition of real time. But yeah, we really like to get in there, partner with them, understand their business, understand what their goals are, what their definitions of success are, and then really like let the product speak for itself. Whether it's like very early, my team like has done excellent work with like these workshops that really got like the customer juices flowing and like trying to understand and kind of building that solution themselves. Because we work with developers, we're getting our hands dirty and playing around and seeing what breaks, etc. So we really let them in there very early, and then we keep evolving from that, right? So we get them in there early, we pick their curiosity at something, we continue to build into a different solution from there. Now we're building a PSC. Now we're looking into like, okay, let's look at it with, again, your data, your definition, your like day to day. And yeah, we let the product speak for itself. And that's usually how our customers tend to decide.
That's awesome. And I think when you especially can go in these conversations with your peers at the cloud partners, and I know I've done this, where it's like, hey, we're really interested about serverless, right? So we would have our account team and someone from Lambda, because I manage the AWS partnership. We'd all converse together and kind of talk about the pluses and the minuses, or you know, the way we integrate and the way we could build these things together. And what I thought was interesting, and I know I've done this, but when you talked about that, you know, real time is 15 minutes, you know, it's important to talk to those people about the future, because that might be their reality now. But is that going to be their requirement in a year, 2, 3 years out? And sometimes it's nice to position something that may be overkill now, but future-proofs them in terms of both their future latency requirements, but also in their scale. So and then it gets even deeper when you think of things at cloud scale. So it's really impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a very important point, because I've had those conversations too, right? Where they're like, well, this is enough for today. And you really try to like let them look at not even like tomorrow, but like this afternoon.
Right.
What's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Is that how you're going to feel when
really...
your CEO says, I need a GenAI product tomorrow, right? Like
Exactly. And that's when honestly the beauty of services that scale with like a customer need come in, because it's really like as elastic as the customer needs become, right? And yes, perhaps it could be like a little bit more expensive at like the ground level, but then as things naturally progress, and you hope they progress for like your customer,
right?
It just becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah, you got to set them up for success in the future too. Otherwise, you're doing them a disservice. So we've heard your wins and now your strategy, but let's hear from another voice in the world of data streaming, particularly one of our partners. And I'd love to get your reaction.
Confluent is a great AWS partner with their Kafka streaming architecture that allows enterprises to connect, process, and govern data at scale. This enables the building of a real-time, contextualized, trustworthy application that is a key differentiator for generative AI.
All right, so we heard from Mario, and there's like really kind of two things from that clip I want to talk about. The first is he said Confluent's a great partner. So what, in your opinion, makes a great partner?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, I think that, and not to beat the dead horse, but like that shared communication, that shared interest on each other. Obviously mutual benefit, like you were mentioning at the top. Definitely great, right? Like, I don't think AWS would be calling us a great partner if we didn't bring them any business and we give them a lot of work instead. But yeah, I mean, we've we've loved working with them. They're like a really great cloud provider to work with. They're always game to try
Yeah, they really
something.
are
They're
customer and partner obsessed. I got to give it to them. I used to work for them, and we talked about that, and being on the other side of that relationship and having been a customer, they really do exude that, right? There's plenty of things you can criticize about any service provider, but they bring the energy. I'll give them that. So, kind of in the kind of same vein. So Mario works. He's part of the AI ML services team, or the field team. He's an SA, a solutions architect at AWS. And in that particular clip, we're talking about AWS Bedrock. Now, not just limited to Bedrock, but all of the cloud service providers have GenAI products. What do you think we bring to that? Right? Like, what is the part that Confluent does that makes that such an exciting partnership as it pertains to those services at the CSPs?
We bring them data in real time, which is not that easy, right?
No.
Like, I remember when all this GenAI buzz started like going on. I was talking to a couple of our partners, and what really made them pause was realizing that we could offer context to that AI generation in real time. So we weren't even talking anymore about just like sending the data that led to the training of the models or led to like informing the models, but more so about offering that context, that customer context in real time, which was an absolute like just slam dunk for them.
Yeah, so without like derailing the entire conversation to GenAI, which we could probably do an entire series on.
We could.
There's this whole thing of retrieval augmented generation. That's kind of when you like feed data as part of the prompt, so that the GenAI knows, okay, I'm supposed to answer based on this fresh data. And the GenAI to me is just another data challenge. It's, if you don't already have real-time data pipelines, this is just another reason to get you to there. And if you already had that, you probably got to market with your GenAI service much quicker. So I think that's where the cloud service providers are so excited. They're like, hey, they got the real-time data that's part of this equation that we don't necessarily have, especially when it comes to like hybrid scenarios. And of course, that's got to be exciting for those guys. And we heard it from Mario. So I think that's definitely
And some of the biggest successes that we had in GenAI as a company has been like through like very strong like cloud provider customers too. Like all of our success stories really had that in common, right? Like they were really big customers of ours already. Like they were very far ahead in their data streaming platform and in their data capabilities. And then it was just plug and play with Bedrock or Vertex AI or OpenAI or whatever like their chosen flavor was. And that's, to your point, they got to market like that in less than a year, doing very, very cool stuff.
That's awesome. Giving customers that freedom and giving that type of synergy to our partners. That's what we're all about here at Confluent. So we've discussed partnerships, strategies. We've heard from real people about how data streaming is transforming organizations. Now it's time for the real hard-hitting stuff, our data streaming meme of the week. So we're going to take a listen to this one, and then I would love to get your thoughts on it.
Look! I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, chicken, turkeys, rabbits, you name it!
It really reflects how we feel sometimes when we get into a call and we have to describe it's like, well, no, there's this thing, and then there's also that other thing. Also, like, let me tell you, and sometimes you don't let your partner or your customer get a word in because I'm still describing everything that the data platform is offering. It's really funny, really tempting.
Yeah, and you and I have been here long enough when that list was a lot shorter. So it's really cool for us to have grown into that meme. Had we tried that meme in 2020, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective.
And we only had to say 3 things back in 2020. Like.
We got turkey, stuffing, potatoes. That's it.
That's it.
All right, so this has been awesome. But before we let you go today, we're going to do a lightning round. Bite-sized questions, bite-sized answers. Are you ready, Elena?
Let's see. I can talk, so
All
let's
right, you
go.
got it. All right. What's something you hate about IT?
I mean, I hate that they made me cancel this recording last week because they weren't solving my issue.
USB. I hate it, USB. Okay, so what's the last piece of media you streamed?
A podcast, probably. I am very much a podcast person. If I am running around the house, I'm listening to a podcast.
What's a hobby you enjoy that helps you think differently about data governance?
I love traveling, and about every time I get into a plane, my juices get flowing about how the flying experience could be better. Could be made better with better data streaming governance. But I will wait for the airlines to contact me.
That's really good. I mean, airlines are some of our big customers, but that was good. I thought that was kind of a hard question, especially in a lightning round, so I'm very impressed with that. Can you name a book or resource that has influenced your approach to data management or data streaming?
I mean, I was thinking hard about this one, but gotta give it to our friend Stefan Marek. He really has created some of the best content out there for Kafka in general and like data. So yeah, gotta give it to him.
Yeah, I can't. Countless times I've seen people getting ready for like our Confluent certifications using those courses. So he's definitely helping push the boundaries of the data streaming pioneers. What is your advice for a first-time chief data officer?
Kind of in the vein of that last one, always be learning. Like we said, things change by the minute, the second nowadays. They're like, here comes a new like technology capability that we didn't know about 5 minutes ago. So you gotta stay sharp. You gotta keep on top of it if you don't want to fall behind.
That's excellent. So any final thoughts or anything to plug, Elena?
Nothing to plug other than check out everything that my amazing team does with regards to our cloud partners at Confluent. And thank you so much for having me here. It was great to be a part of this in whatever shape or form I could. It's always good to see you.
It's honestly my honor. Thank you so much for joining me today, Elena. And for all of you watching us, stick around because after this, I'm giving you my 3 top takeaways in 2 minutes. Man, what a great conversation with Elena. Here are my 3 top takeaways. All right, first is definitely transparency. I mean, it came up multiple times. When you're working with customers at this level, trying to help them build these incredible architectures that are really supposed to be the lifeblood of the data of your systems, you have to be transparent. You have to come into a conversation honestly, and we expect to do the same with and for our partners. So I think that's a real key strategy. And again, that could apply to any of the relationship you have in your life. Just be honest. Another huge takeaway is, I love, I wasn't expecting it, but the stack that Elena put together, right? She put together 2 Confluent tools and a Google tool. I think she is a little biased having worked for Google all those years, but in all honesty, it was a really impressive answer and really kind of in the spirit of what she does, right? For us, we're data movers here at Confluent, and ultimately you want to use tools outside of our ecosystem, and we support that. We also want to connect this to sources outside of our ecosystem to get data in the Confluent and be that information superhighway. And my last takeaway, honestly, is really comes back to that quick bite, right? The data governance answer. I really like that one in particular. I wasn't expecting that, but when you think of flights or flight travel, there really is nothing I can think of that's kind of more event-driven in real time. You need that information, you need it now. I can't find out that my flight's delayed an hour after it's delayed, right? I need to know that information now. So data governance, trying to make sure all that data is high quality for anyone that's ever traveled before, especially a long distance, I'm sure that's very meaningful to you. That's it for this episode of Life is But a Stream. Thanks again to Elena for joining us, and thanks to you for tuning in. As always, we're brought to you by Confluent. If you can't get enough and want to talk more streaming, find me on LinkedIn. Tell a friend or coworker about us and subscribe to the show so you'll never have to miss an episode. We'll see you next time.